at thefreezepipe.com. Thanks to The Freeze Pipe. If you'd like to support us, check out their products on their website. What about the other team? We don't have to talk much about them. Obviously, the problem with XL was it feels like you don't really know what to make of them because they did the Abadaga switch at the end. And it's like, did it work? Did it not? And did it matter? What do you make of this split of XL, Doffman? Like, should they have been better? I know there were a couple of games they were in where they could have won. They could have been in groups, you know?
Yeah, it's too hard to say now. I feel like there was too many changes in like such a short period of time that it just can't have been easy to play. If every single week you're worrying, am I next? Is it my turn now? I had a bad game. Maybe it's my turn to go. So it's hard to really judge what they could have been. I just feel like they never really got a chance to work on any of the issues they had because players just kept changing, I felt like.
Obviously, they did, by the end of the split, they only had 3 of the players from last split, Dom. They did only have Ordo, Cersei, and Patrick, obviously. Like, put it this way, if this XL lineup now played the whole split, would they have been better? Do you think so?
Maybe. I mean, I think probably, actually, if you look at how Abadage plays, it looks like he was at least trying to be somebody who's more active on the map, which is what XL really needed when you're looking at his Jace. Like, he's trying to roam, he's trying to make things happen. And what's so sad is that he's getting to the plays before Xerxes. It shows how late Xerxes is, how slow Xerxes is, because you see Abadage moving first. He's going to get to the bot lane, who's, you know, pushing up that turret before Xerxes is. I feel like Xerxes was really in his head this split because he's played better than this. It's not just that he's on a worse team. The way that he approached lanes, it just looked like he was one of those junglers who was trying not to look bad. He was stuck in his jungle. He was not farming well. He was not making plays on the map. I mean, it just didn't look like he was the same player at all. And, you know, when we were talking about Jankos, the Jankos point, specifically on how his mental was so good, how he played well in every game, I think that here is an example of a veteran that actually did get mentally shattered by the end of the split, which I think Odo just had some of his worst games at the end where you could tell that just the games affected him and he was just tilted by the last 2 games, which were important games, right? These are games where if you win, you qualify. And if he plays better in that Olaf game, for example, you're at least forcing a tiebreaker. So I think that just kind of shows you the other side of things. This team is just doomed. I think that they need at least a jungle change. I think that the way that they play just frustrates the players, and I don't think that the players actually respect each other. If you see the things that you see afterwards, if you look at Twitter and you see Odo tweeting out, "Wow, nice game, guys. Hopefully we win the next game." Like, happy face. Right after they lose, you're like, this motherfucker is tilted as hell. Like, shit. Like, he is not having it. And like,
not really his style, is he? He's not really like a happy-go-lucky guy. I know, exactly.
Yeah, it's not his style at all. And the games itself, I mean, he's solo killing, like, with Malphite. He's like, hey, I'm solo killing a Gnar with Malphite in lane. How are we losing every single team fight?
What more can I do? Exactly.
You look at the review, and I don't know how people would not just think Xerxes is just complete shit, right? Like, when you're looking at his Wukong, if I did that shit in a solo queue game, I would be embarrassed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What he's doing on stage, like, and then all players have to watch that, and then they have to, like, be like, oh, well, don't you think it would have been better to just not completely run down the entire team fight? Like, what are you going to even say when somebody is playing mechanically that bad with a lead later on in the game? I mean, the Koi game, my God, that was one of the most painful games I lost. I mean, you watch that game, and the first comment that people were making was, is there any rule in the book where we can afford both these teams a loss here? Is there any rule we can give them both losses based off what we just watched? Because no one deserved to win that shit. Like, Koi somehow just got to exist for 40 minutes in the game, and then they somehow, like, won later on by XL throwing, but they didn't deserve to win that game. So it's tough, man. XL, they're pretty doomed. I think at least the jungle change is needed. You might need to go harder than that too, like, because the vibes might be so fucking doomed. It might be just so negative at this point that you just need a completely fresh look with a bunch of new players.
Yes. Oh, I will say, if you are Fnatic, Koi, and Mad Lions, your main takeaway from the season, the round robin, just is this. Whew, thank God XL and fucking Heretics exist. We might have been really exposed there, boy. Because in a sane world, you motherfuckers should have been, each one of you could have been out in this stage. Absolutely. Eye test wise, the teams you lost to, a lot of those teams just fucking finally just, unclenched. Like, but those last 2 weeks were fucking brutal for some of them. No, the other thing I'll say as well is the reason why the XL one is so harsh, and don't worry, behind the scenes, you have to find out, but I'm sort of digging around because there's more to this story than people know. Because if people don't know, the rumor before the whole, when I say season now, it's fucked, isn't it? But I mean, before the winter split began after the offseason, maybe you heard it, Doffman. The rumor behind the scenes was this team was even doing well in scrims, and people thought like it was going to be a top team, and like it wasn't just on paper like me. Like people actually had said that they were doing well and the vibe was good, and then something changed, which nearly always, by the way, means like personality conflict. Yeah. People didn't get along, like a vision. Because the thing I never thought made sense, maybe we'll make the final point on XL, we'll go on after this, Doffman, is the part that I really think sad about the XL experiment is it's going to make people think everyone in the team, coaches, staff to players, are all shit. And it's like, that cannot be true if you look at these players elsewhere in their careers. Like, they'd have had to be the luckiest guys ever, some of them. Like, what do you think on that? Because it's going to, if you look at the way they play, look, I don't blame you. If you take the nameplates off, they look terrible, these two splits.
Yeah, exactly. I think at some point, just too much goes wrong, and how the team, like, is set up at the start of the year and just how they interact with each other, that they just look so much worse. I think it kind of reminds me a bit of BDS last year. I think it doesn't matter what state we get into games, when you don't fundamentally trust that what you're doing is going to work, then you're immediately starting on a bad foot. Like, so many times in these games, situations should be good for XL, but they just mechanically misplay. They're overthinking it. Like, you're just looking at, like, when Rakan has an insane flank ahead of Drake, he can jump onto 2 carries and then he like fail flashes and then he has to W over and gets no one. It's just, or when there's like close situations, they're contesting the Elder Drake and Odo wants to go in, but Xerxes wants to 50-50 the Elder, and then all of a sudden they can do neither because they've just wasted everything. It just kind of falls apart, and that gets worse and worse as the split goes on. So I kind of agree with Dom. I think something needs to change because they can't just run it back. With all of the history now, they just can't run it back, it feels like.
I'll also say as well, look, this will be a harder sell because sadly, even other players and teams do go off like recency bias and what have you seen in scrims and if they believe someone's good. But the worst part about it is, this is why I also think they probably made a mistake just waiting until now to make changes, like beyond just do the odd one at a time. Because you also had trade bait before, like some of these pieces, like especially after the first split, dude, I think a bunch of teams might have like gambled on Vethio if they thought it was just like, maybe the jungles. I think now you might have even tanked some of the rep of these players as well. Like, I hope you can still trade them. Like, I would hope someone would still want Odoam there. Like, I would. Like, aside from games where they didn't play around him or he got tilted, it still looks totally fine. Looks like he could be a very good player in a different team. Vethio, look, that one looks really bad. But again, I just don't believe the last 3 splits last year and before that were just somehow a coincidence. At worst, that means you can make it work around him. Whether that means you pair him with a Razork or you get him with a coach that's worked, who the fuck knows what the angle is. But the point is, there's got to be some way that guy can be good again. I don't buy this angle that people are doing that's like, they make it sound for real, dude. Like, in the other teams, it was the funnel meta, and he just sat in mid lane under tower and ate all the farm, and at the end of the game, like some mad old, like 2012 daughter carry, just carried the whole game. It's like, no, he wasn't. Just go watch the games, guys. He was really fucking good. He really was just like mega. Yeah, you had to give him resources, but if you did, he carried like every back to front to back team fight. It was ridiculous. Yep. So like, I just refuse to believe this guy is done for good. I will say the way he exited XL is a bit alarming, both maybe for XL and for him. Like, that sort of tweet wasn't really the sort of thing you want to hear, but if the right whisperer can come and sort of get in his ear and get the right team around him, he could be reclaimed. You could put him in a different team, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I agree. I think he came in to winter and the team didn't really play how he's used to playing, right? I think the biggest weakness of XL was how mid jungle support functioned, and I think they never quite got to the point where it did. And that was where, on Misfits, his biggest strength was just, as you say, scaling and getting into team fights later on. You just needed to make sure you protected him on any difficult waves when he's on stuff like Silas and Corki, and then he will do well in team fights. But yeah, I don't think they ever got to the point where he could do that. I also didn't think it was necessarily a meta where that suits the meta, essentially. Like, you see a lot of games are won by caps just giving up waves and just running bot running top, and Niski as well is famous for doing it. Like, I just don't think the meta really suited that. So at the same time, it's like a little bit of tough meta for him, and I don't think the team really like meshed well around what made him strong in Misfits, and they did really well to create a situation where he could look strong. I don't think XL did the same.
I would like to say, though, just if people have been watching the show, I like to keep all the narratives totally legit and by the book. So I will actually issue a small apology to Razork, Humanoid, and Hylissang. Because when you three played together in the past and were all in the shit out of the game at the same time and losing all those games, I used to think that was the worst anyone collectively could play from those three positions. But I've now learned you could actually just do nothing and lose all those games. And I can tell you right now, that's actually even worse. You know what? That's why I'm issuing an apology. You guys at least could sometimes trip over and get like kills out of it or turn a scenario. These guys really did just go. It's like they started every game except for once they changed the players. The original 5 started every game. It's like they're UFC fighters. They run up to the other guy at the beginning of the fight. They turn around, go underneath, let him put like a rear naked choke on them. And then they just do nothing as he slowly chokes them out for like that. And then at the end, they just go out. And it's like, what was the game plan? They're like, I don't know, man. It was really hard. Just couldn't get into the fight. It's like, you didn't even have a chance, didn't give you, like, at least, like, Hylissang's give himself a punching chance, like, he's doing something, like, mate, that was a nightmare.
Here's something that I thought about. When was the last time that an LEC game ended with somebody having 0 kills, a team having 0 kills? Because that happened to XL this split. When was the last time you had a 0-kill LEC game? Because I mean, there's times where you get stumped, but normally you'll get 1 kill randomly somewhere, or you'll just try to get a team fight started. It'll be like 5 for 1 ace and the game will explode. Having 0 kills at the end of a game, that is fucking crazy. Like, you have to be doing some next level pacifist run in order for this to work out. So it's tough to watch. I mean, they definitely need player changes, for sure. I mean, and what I think they need is somebody who just has that aggressive mindset in the jungle, because that'll be a catalyst for everyone. They want to be able to play around somebody. Somebody like 113 would be so good for this team, where you just got like somebody who's going around the map trying to fucking like start fights. And it's like, hey, he's fighting whether we like it or not. So you might as well fucking back him up, or we just lose. I feel like the players are good at following up on things, but none of the players are good on finding plays they want to do. They seem like the type of team where every time that they're trying to make a decision, they're always trying to look for like how it could fail. Like, oh, don't go for that because this guy could move. This guy could, oh, this guy has TP, so we can't take this fight. This guy, like, they're always, oh, Rakata's first move, they have push here. They just have, they're so like problem oriented in the way that they approach things. And that's the reason, that's how you get into the do nothing and lose type of mindset, is that you can't find a play that's guaranteed winning. So you end up just doing nothing because you're like, oh, well, we're not going to take a 55-45. We're not going to take a 50-50. When we're losing, we're not going to take like a 30-70, where that might be just the best chance you have to win the game. They'll always be looking for reasons why things can fail. There's always a reason why they should not be doing something. And then, like Duffman says, when they get into like mid to late game, it feels like they're so scarred from losing so many games that they just can't win. They're like, oh, I hope we don't throw. They're thinking, man, it would really suck if we lost this game to Koi, where we're like up in every fucking lane, everyone's super ahead, we've got like soul point, all this type of stuff. It would really suck if we lost. I hope we don't lose. Where as soon as that enters your mind, you know you're fucked. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have for XL. I think the other,
it's all good.
The other thing that is interesting about the team is just. And one thing that I think they might have struggled with is when you don't meet the expectations that you think the team will meet immediately, and it ends up like being really jarring for players. So I assume going into the split, most people probably thought the same way as the community would think, like, oh, we'll be a 4th, 5th place team. We'll be, there. And if things go well, we can do a little bit better. If things go worse, maybe we'll do a little bit worse. But they have like a general expectation of where the team will place. And going into, the first split, and when you start losing games, you realize like, oh shit, we're actually a bottom tier team in this league. I don't know if the players were ready for that amount of struggle. I think a lot of the players went into this and they saw the other people they're playing with, and they'll be like, even if this goes bad, we'll at least be decent. Sure. And when they weren't able to hit that, I wonder how much of an effect that had on the players, because I think that some players just respond to that really poorly. And especially if you have like, veterans that have been doing well, I don't know if they're ready to potentially be on a bad team. Are they mentally ready to go through the struggle of like, we're shit, how do we band-aid solutions? How do we like fight tooth and nail to get a couple more wins so we can get to the next stage? It didn't seem from watching the games like the players were ready for that amount of struggle.
Got a few things there. So one, I agree. By the way, that Koi game was an absolute fucking war crime. That should be like in The Hague. They should have to answer for that. Like both teams, I think, quite frankly, even Koi should. Also, this just shows how badly XL was coached. All they had to do was give them mnemonic devices to win the game. Because if they'd have just thought of an all-time classic ska band, they could have won that game. Real big fish. So, see what now, whatever. Some people aren't going to get them all off, man. It's okay. These are just for the adults in the room, you know, when watching the kids' movie. This is like a Pixar sort of production in some ways for Reddit. The other thing is, people probably wonder, the fuck? Humanoid went 4-0 and you're still going to fucking let him catch a stray. Listen, I'm good at what I do. I'll find a way to do it no matter what. You can win the fucking world championship, mate. I'll find some angle. Just ask Bowlan. I think he's shit. He is shit. You were shit. Like, basically, Rakan won that world championship. You didn't, Bowlan. You just happened to, you were a passenger, and Rakan won that world championship. But okay, it's all good. You stole it.
Yeah, he's playing in LPL right now. He's making a comeback. They were the worst team in LPL.
Yes,
they placed 17th place. And that's the thing about LPL. If you suck at LPL, you don't just get, we were 10th place.
No,
we
exactly.
were like 1 week down. It's like, no, you were like 7 wins away from fucking playoffs. You won you played 37 games in this split. Like, and you looked bad in all of them. Like, please go back to retirement. You know.
I also love the fact that in their league, it's like 10 teams make playoffs. If you don't, it's like, fuck you. Like, there's no way you can ever feel good about that. There's no like, get them next time. It's like, yeah, exactly. So it's like everyone's invited to the party except you, basically. Like, you're just on the outside looking at the window, like, please, I used to be in IG. It's like, don't worry, mate, they'll be with you next split.
And percentage-wise, it's easier to make playoffs in LEC than it is to make playoffs in LPL. So
that's true. Well, groups at least. Groups. Yeah.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.